Hey everybody, good afternoon. So thanks for joining us. We're gonna dive in. We've got some exciting things to talk about today. But yeah, first one, just start off. We'll go through some quick intros. Joe?
Yep, I'm ready.
Let's do it. So why don't you tell everyone just about yourself, your role, and maybe a little fun fact.
Okay. So I'm at Peacock. I look after all consumer and content marketing there across it. So that's sport, TV, movies. I've been there for 3 years and came over from London to launch the product just 2 weeks before the pandemic, which was an amazing life move. And fun fact is I'm naturally a paleontologist. Which totally tracks.
Wow. No idea. I learn new things every day. Okay, so let's have some fun. So favorite show to binge watch on a rainy New York City day?
Can I give it by genres?
Please.
Okay, so comedy, 30 Rock, which obviously tracks, but I was a big fan. That's why I took the job, so I could work in the building, and get a page, obviously. I would say Succession or West Wing for drama, and in unscripted, I'm all about Love Island.
Wow.
Woo!
You have some fans here, apparently. Cool. My favorite show to binge watch, well, actually, I'll pass this one to my wife. So we were getting ready to leave here from Detroit. It was 6 inches of snow going on. We had the 2 dogs on the couch with her and the 2 daughters, and they were just like plowing away on the Hallmark Channel, which happens way too much in my household. So I don't know if you have a solution around that or not.
Yeah, which is get Peacock and watch it 24/7.
I got to do it. Thank you. So you've had a phenomenal 3 years, right, with the launch. Great last year. Congratulations on the amazing growth, right? Almost, I believe, doubling the subscription numbers as well. So would love to understand too, like, how did you do it? What was some of the big wins that you had as a marketing org?
Got it. Yeah, so we've had really terrific momentum over the past year, which I think has been great. And, we're one of the streamers who launched later. But I think that's really because we offer, in what has become a more fragmented streaming market, something for everyone. And so that is, off the back of like our originals, which are really getting going. We had Poker Face and Best Man. All these got into Nielsen top 10 streaming. Then we had, of course, sport, which I think is a real differentiator for us. So we rolled in from like Premier League into Sunday Night Football, then into the World Cup, which was amazing. And then obviously through our P1 movies, we have like some of the Universal's blockbuster hits, whether it's Jurassic or Nope or Megan or something coming as well. And then, as your family likes, we also have something to suit everybody's moods, which is channels as well. So whether it's news that you want to sort of have in the background or lean into, or whether it's the Hallmark channel. So I think really what we're trying to do is meet people where they are and probably give them an experience which is, dare I say it, because it just seems very anti-streaming, something that they found comforting and comfortable about the old aggregated cable streaming model. And I think that's where we get all this sort of amazing momentum from, and the content that our partners provide to us.
Wow. So there's obviously a continual, some people call it battle, war for streaming as well. So would love to just kind of talk a little bit about kind of, what are you guys doing to really go after really kind of active users, right? And really keeping people plugged in for viewing time. Like what is working really well and maybe what didn't work?
Yeah. So I think when you have, I think the difference with our service, and I guess Paramount Plus probably has the same thing, is that when you start adding live in, you get a very different churn curve depending on who's coming in or not, right? So it's always for us balancing, you've got this sort of inbuilt demand for live events, whether it's sport or, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or something that we offer. And those people, you need to try and keep them within the atmosphere. We have a lot of promos on there. We have an ad-supported tier, as you know. So it's keeping them engaged and making sure you're mapping out what other content they want to watch. And then, of course, for people who've come in for scripted and unscripted series and movies, it's about how you sort of plot your schedule around the place. So really it's providing the most difficult thing in this environment is getting a beat of schedule that keeps those audiences engaged. But, obviously, without giving any numbers away, we're doing really well at maintaining a lot of those audiences. And I think that is because it can be a sort of one-stop shop, all-in-one-place destination.
So obviously being part of a larger company, you've got challenges, you have resources, you have a lot of things to navigate every single day. How does that really help you from a marketing organization?
So I think, the benefit, Peacock is, as you know, the sort of baby bird of NBCU, and I think the advantage of that is you can really pull a lot of levers across the company as well, So we have everything from our sort of P1 deals, which is Focus Features and Universal, which come on board. It comes on through our sport, of course, which is hugely significant from NBC Sports, and through them we are now in the place where we have more live sports than any other streamer, including ESPN, which is a little known fact. But I think also there's things that we can do across the atmosphere through Symphony, which is something that we talk about at NBCU, which is how we ensure that we are reaching new audiences through our sort of paid efforts, I guess, in the main, but also our existing audiences who want something more through our sort of linear networks as well. And so that's everything from integrations to promos and different things we do. But I think you can knit together a really great impact when you pull all these levers of the company. And we've seen that as in examples like the Super Bowl last year, which we have, and we launched Bel Air out of, and lots of other things where we started building the momentum of last year. And we'll have it again and we've had it in the Olympics as well, which come to Peacock, and will come again next year.
And how does that, how does that work as far as kind of a culture of testing and learning? Kind of what's the mindset, if you will, kind of internally, right? Is it, do things take a little bit longer to kind of activate? Is it you get to move faster because you're kind of inside of the family? Would love to kind of understand, like, how do you kind of test and learn new tactics or partners?
Yeah. So we do quite a lot of testing all around the place. There's a whole crew in the back, actually, who are constantly testing everything. But I would say it comes in two ways, right? One is we have a huge variety of first-party data where we can test things out and see what's working and drive a more efficient CPA. And then there's just tests that we're doing at a sort of more macro level with our partners across NBCU as well, which is really about other things like phasing, flighting, money spent, which content to test. And that's, I think everybody is testing that out because it's so fiercely competitive and the landscape is so, contended that all the old rules have sort of gone out the window and everybody's trying to figure out the right way to draw attention to themselves, which is the sort of battle that we're in now.
And speaking of flighting, I think I saw a flying nun last night around the city. Was that true? Or
is that because you were on a bucking bronco somewhere? Because there was a nun there.
There's a little tequila involved, yeah. Totally.
So that is true. If you see nuns around, that is for shameless plug for our new original coming up, Mrs. Davis. So, which is very friendly algorithm is taken down or tries to be taken down by a badass nun. So that's what's going on.
Wow. ChatGPT at its finest. Let's rewind time a little bit. So Michael Dell was in Detroit. I'm from Detroit. Back in 1999, November 99. So Michael Dell, obviously resident hero here of Austin. And he talked about the 3 C's of e-commerce and marketing, right? Content, community, and really commerce, right? And he said the winner of community will win the battle. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think that community is more important than ever. As we just mentioned, like, there is so much going on. There's so many streamers, there's so many cable networks, there's content everywhere. People have a shorter attention span, so getting people to rally around either the content you like or your brand is really important. But I think the way he said that as well, it wasn't just so much about community and recommendation, which drives a lot of viewing. It's also about, I guess, the community around your brand, and I think he probably didn't do as well as others on that part of it. Yeah. But so part of the challenge as well is not just to be single title focused all the time, but how do you make sure that people appreciate your brand and stay there? And that's something that we've worked really hard on as well. And that's been even more interesting for us because we're not an NBC Plus or anything like that. We chose a new name. So how do you build... And we did it deliberately because we wanted to be more than that, because we have originals and sport and Bravo next day and things like that. So you've got to build the brand, which we're really trying to do. But I think the other part of it, at the risk of taking this answer too long, is he was also talking about suppliers. And so in our case, we work in a creative community. And so our suppliers are the people who are selling us their content. So a really big part of this industry, which I guess is not talked about as much as the pure marketing or the content itself, is how do you ensure that you are a place where creators, the best talent, want to come and work. And that is something also that we spend a lot of time doing. And, whether it's, Mrs. Davis I talked about is a brilliant but bonkers show by Damon Lindelof and Tara Hernandez, and they've come there to try something really ambitious and prestige and experimental, and, which we're supporting them in that, So Poker Face again is new IP. It's not a remake of something. How do you support someone to tell a new story? So I think yeah, it's important, but it's not just about your consumers, it's also about your supply chain, which is our creators.
That's fantastic. So talent is fluid, right? Talent has choices. Consumers have choices. So talk to me really about brand, right? So brand in terms of kind of full funnel. At the end of the day, yes, it's easy to look at just cost per subscriptions and really kind of go there. But how do you kind of look at full funnel or brand inside of full funnel, right? And really how it all comes together.
So I think, I've been in sort of D2C businesses for a while, and I think the fun part of it and the most interesting part of it is how you can knit together everything. So not just your paid media and not just your creative that you're putting out, but how are you working with your product and editorial teams to make sure that you're doing things on the UI that are really working and sort of talking to your customers? Or how are you making sure that your organic social strategy is tied together with your paid social strategy in a way that's driving down your CPAs and getting a drumbeat continually across there? So I would say that is the exciting part of this job in a D2C business, is how you knit everything together through that funnel, and finding new and interesting ways to continually do that, is what everybody's trying out, and which, you find some success and you run with it.
So really attention, right, is currency, right, for a lot of people, right? It's really kind of dwell time, view time, consumption time, right? And most people have multiple different apps, right, across multiple different screens inside of their household. So obviously, at the end of the day, it's winning those eyeballs as well. And I think you guys have done an amazing job of that over the last 3 years. Obviously, Poker Face, and you've got a lot of interesting stuff coming. What is really kind of working well, and where do you guys see kind of new opportunities there as well for kind of really keeping and winning new attention when people have multiple choices of streaming services?
Yeah. So I think I sort of touched on as well, I think when we've got the range of content that we have, it's really about how you're handing people across from WWE into Fast 10, then into football, then into an original they like. And once you start looking at the entire landscape of content it's about mapping that out. So I think that is the attention that helps, and live helps as well. There is an urgency to live that is really helpful when you're marketing a service. And while it might not capture the entire country, you are driving inflow there and capturing them once they're in your system. And that's where, your entire own system becomes really important about surfacing the content that they want to have, So because we have an ad-supported tier, we also have promos running through that. So we can make sure that we're targeting those people with the content they might like and they stay on. And then besides that, it's about how do you drive impact in your marketing, right? How do you get comfortable with having fewer, bigger creative swings that are really about driving an earned moment, more than your traditional advertising. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that's where you have to get comfortable, to go to your point about testing, which is sort of taking a risk, actually, and seeing how it works. So.
And it works just about all the time?
Nothing works all the time. But it works quite a bit of the time. I mean, we took a risk with the Poker Face Super Bowl ad, I guess. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
But, when we went into that, we weren't really sure how it would work. And it was like a very hectic week before the Super Bowl where we contacted all the brands that we put into that Super Bowl ad and tried to make it happen. And it was pretty touch and go, right? So in those sort of moments, which was the most fun and hectic Slack channel I've ever seen in my life, it was, will it come off and will it do what we need to do? And we got some great brands on board who were happy to be in the ad, and, it drove, I guess, a greater interest in Peacock as well as the show, which is about trying to do something different, rather than a sort of standard sizzle in the Super Bowl. So we're pretty happy with the outcome of that.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. And you talked a little bit about AI, but just curious, like from an AI perspective as well, how do you see it really kind of stitching through Peacock from really kind of a consumer experience perspective? How do you see it really kind of benefiting if you looked forward, maybe a year or two from now?
Yeah, so I think AI is the most interesting thing at the moment as a marketeer. Like, we've been sort of, obviously, like everybody, trying to figure out how you can play around with it. I think it's a bit difficult when you're in content because you're dealing with, humans, not a brand, stuff like that. So, so I think that's really interesting, and I think that's where it will have the most legs. The most obvious application, I guess, is, when it comes to getting timely, relevant messages and communication to the right person, whether that's via an ad platform that we have in the back end or something. That's probably where we'll see it really take off first, and then there'll be some exciting creative bits around it. But it's probably still got a long way to go, because at the end of the day, people want really timely, correct and relevant information that speaks to them. And I don't think AI yet has probably the level of relevant information that we would have, but it will happen over the time, and that's the most interesting part of it.
And really, authenticity is key, right? So again, there's a lot of, I guess, kind of platforms out there that can create copycats, can take away from really authentic content as well. So obviously, it's exciting. Yeah. It's also a challenge on the other side as well of who owns it and what's authentic about it. Is it diluted? And
the authenticity is absolutely the key, because you don't want to do it and feel like marketing.
Yeah, 100%. So what are you most excited about looking forward this year at Peacock?
Okay. So I would say, I've already talked about Mrs. Davis. We've got a really strong slate of originals which is coming. We've got Mrs. Davis by Lindelof. We've got Based on a True Story with Kaylee Cuoco coming. And then we've got an amazing time with sport. So obviously we'll go from the Premier League into Sunday Night Football. And then we have the Big Ten coming on to Peacock, which, as you may have told from my accent, Big Ten is not exactly my native sport, but I'm learning a lot about it. But it's going to be like super exciting and really interesting. So that's going to be fun. And then we sort of keep going onto that into the Paris Olympics, right? So when you think about events and sport, there's a lot coming up. We also have our huge movies coming. So we've got things like Mario Fast 10, which is, the P1 films coming again to that. Bravo and NBC Next Day still remain, extremely strong for us, and it feels like no one can watch enough Housewives, which I'm very happy about. And then I think to take it back to product and not just from content, we have a whole range of product innovation we've been testing out. So we've been doing watch withs where people can watch shows with the stars or talent or influencers talking on the UI. We've tested that with Housewives and Bel-Air, and it's gone really well. We're sort of been testing out a watch with, which actually takes a sort of, what used to be behind the scenes and puts it into the content. So when you watch, for example, we trialled this out at BravoCon, it was very popular. When you watch an episode of, at this stage it was Ultimate Girls Trip, you can dip in and stop and do a behind the scenes as you watch. So that is something that drives deep fandom for people who really care about those shows and those characters and that talent. So we're rolling that out as well. And then we have, the channels that we've been bringing on board, like Hallmark, which gives people, I think for us, a really wide variety of content to meet any mood. And I think that's where you get the momentum and you get people to stay on your platform. You drive down churn and you get bigger. So we've had, a great time with that, and I think that's what's coming up that makes it more. But at the same time, it's the streaming industry, and it's 2023, so anything could happen. Anything can happen.
You heard it here first. Really kind of in closing, a lot of people have been talking about the last few days as well. Again, there's talent moving, right? From brands to agencies, the publishers, there's talent shortages in some regards as well. You've got a pretty diverse cross-section here in this room. So words of closing for the room as well. Would love to kind of understand, what would you want to leave people with that are in all really kind of areas of their career, right? They could be, just starting a couple years in, or again, 20, 30 years in. So would love to hear from you.
On a career level?
Yeah.
I think take a risk, I would say. I chose, to move countries to come into the most competitive, moment in the entertainment industry for a long, long time. And it's been really enjoyable and awful at the same time. I don't mean awful, I just mean awful in terms of the pandemic and the busyness and the constant need to change. But that's all really valuable because you take it everywhere else. And at the end of the day, you have to be extremely resilient in any career you're in now. And streaming is a very good battleground for being resilient about those things. So I would say take a risk, never get bored, see what's new, and probably throw yourself into somewhere where you think things are going to change and you're going to learn a lot. What is the biggest mountain that you've climbed over your career? Well, that makes me sound like Paramount Plus, so that makes me nervous. But challenge that you have overcome? So I would say, well, I think I mentioned it a bit earlier, which is, I chose to come here and I landed in New York in a service department with a 3-year-old by myself 2 weeks before the pandemic to launch a product. So I would say if anybody wants to nail that part of, launching a new product in a very competitive environment by yourself in a pandemic, in a new company, in a new country, then I've absolutely nailed that part. Like, I could fill that role anywhere. So, but I would say that. But it's been, you were forged by adversity and bonding and, terror and joy and giddiness throughout all of those areas. So I wouldn't trade it in. It was amazing.
So fantastic. Great. So appreciate the time. I know we have a couple minutes left for some questions.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, right here.
Hey, Joe. You talked about the urgency of live, and you have sports, obviously. When you look at what Netflix did with the Chris Rock special recently, do you think about scheduling and attempting more live premieres on Peacock? And just take us through what you can share on that.
Yeah, so we have quite a long list of live, like whether it's Thanksgiving Day Parade or sport or Miley Cyrus New Year's Eve concert and things like that. So we're always playing around with live. I don't think that it depends what stage of growth you're in, I think. So I think, not to speak to my friends, but like they're in a different part of growth, which is about keeping people on the service, and we're about driving people to the service. So I think it's really important, particularly sport and WrestleMania, like all the pay-per-views are really important. How much you do in other areas when you're looking at driving massive subscription growth, I'm not sure, but something that we're always looking at and testing out. When it comes to WWE and sport, absolutely.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, Jamal Orr, head of marketing for Rock the Bells. I actually was on Peacock this morning watching Arsenal beat Fulham.
Thank you so much, because I'm Arsenal.
There we go. So, quick question on Premier League. How are you marketing it to U.S. audiences, or are you using it more as a marketing driver? And are you seeing a bump in subs coming out of the World Cup?
Yes to both. So I think the World Cup was the most streamed FIFA game ever. So we did enormously well out of there, and it was fun to do because we had the rights in Spanish. So some of the people who are here in my team and things like that, we had to do a lot to also talk to people about the fact that it was in Spanish and tell them in Spanish as well. But there's nothing that beats a world event like the World Cup for driving appointment to view and excitement and culture. So, and I would say the Premier League as well. So Premier League has been amazing for us. I'm personally quite passionate about it. Thankfully, a lot of people in America are as well, particularly the Arsenal fans. So I would say, yeah, we market all the time. It's been one of the things that I guess to remind you, when we launched, we were always going to have sport. We were supposed to launch on the Olympics. Sport was cancelled. The Olympics were cancelled. So to get back into the sporting arena, to drive growth for Peacock and to really make our service robust was amazing, and we wouldn't step back from it.
Any other questions for Joe or Jeff? We probably have room for 1 to 2 more.
Oh, barbecue time.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. Let's give a round of applause for Joe and Jeff.